Everyone. Okay.
Okay, starting the recording. It's working. Perfect. So, yeah, after being promoted 2 times on Zoom as a host and as a presenter, I'm happy to present my topic. And it's a lot, it has to do a lot about, being promoted, because it's all about career progression for UX writers. So, why, I'm the person who is going to talk about this topic today. Just a quick intro. So right now I'm the senior UX writer lead at Qonto. Qonto is a finance solution for SMEs and freelancers. The leading market is in France, but they're also growing super fast in Spain, Germany, and Italy right now. In general, I've been in product writing, UX writing, or content design, however you want to call it, for 4.5 years. Almost 3.5 years I've been leading teams, and that has been kind of my huge passion. And overall, I've spent more than 5 years in tech. Before I was at Preply. Preply is an online marketplace for language learning for students, and obviously for tutors that are teaching those languages. And yeah, essentially, what I wanted to say is that, despite being where I am, I have started, from a very, very basic position that has nothing to do with product design or UX writing. So I started as an office manager, and to me, obviously, the career growth has been a central topic, because I always wanted to learn, to improve and learn from my peers and so on. First of all, I'm here, kind of just to empower you that no matter where you're starting, if you have, the willingness, if you have the desire to grow, you're going to get there. And of course, today I'm going to shed some light on this, complex topic of career progression. I know that you might be having, many questions as I will be speaking. Just, to set the expectations right, I won't be looking at the chat as I speak. So all questions will be answered after I finish. So let's start. It's crazy that a topic like career development, which is considered so important, is actually very often overlooked in companies or, in teams by managers or by people. So it's not really, deserving the time that it really can, it really deserves. So essentially, what I want to do is to give you some information about, how it works, how you can build a career framework, how it works in the UX writing field, what is a UX writing skills matrix, and how you can build a framework on your own. It doesn't matter if you're a manager or you're just an individual contributor, freelancer, and so on. And then we will also talk about, how to create that space for growth that, a lot of companies and people are actually struggling to find. So how does growth look like when you're a UX writer? So I'm going to start from the very basics. So sorry for if some of you have already seen it, so it's pretty straightforward, but I think that it's important to state that, a UX writing profession is no different, it's not very different from a designer, a developer, or, anybody else in the tech field. So we all start from, very junior positions, and then we grow to more senior positions. And essentially the difference is in the levels of autonomy and responsibility that we have. At some point, we reach the stage where we can decide whether we're going to take the management path, and in this case, and that's essentially the path that I have chosen. So it's about becoming a lead UX writer or a head of UX writing. And then there's the mastery path, is when you're deciding to focus more on the expertise, on the craft, and, you know, elevate your mastery as a UX writer. So to simplify, you know, and make this whole process not so difficult to digest, I'm just going to focus on the first three. And also these are the ones that were more requested from the people, but it will also help you understand, you know, how to build the grid for other roles as well. So essentially, from my experience, the framework that I have built for my Preply team, the UX writer career path was consisting of three dimensions, essentially: delivery, collaboration, and capabilities, also known as skills. So let's look at each one of these stages to understand what the career path of a UX writer consists of. So, and the premise is that this has been crafted for a tech environment, product company. It doesn't mean that, you know, you can take it and use it exactly the way it is in your environment, but it can definitely be a good example that you can work with and maybe, you know, mold in the way that you want. So just so we don't lose it. So 3 dimensions: delivery, collaboration, and capabilities that form a career path for UX writer. When it comes to delivery, what I mean is day-to-day actions. And to be honest, these are pretty common for other roles in tech companies as well. So it's not UX writing specific. And here what I mean is, you know, 3 things. So scope and impact, which means collaborating with other teams, working on projects, impacting the business and the product or the area that you're working on, and obviously the different levels depending on your seniority. Validation, not the perfect term ever, but what I mean here is essentially working with the metrics and understanding how your copy is performing, how it is impacting the business in a, you know, data-oriented way. And then obviously autonomy and initiative, something that we have already talked before. So the level of how autonomous you are as a writer and how much coaching and mentorship you need. So obviously very little coaching if you're a senior and a lot of coaching if you're super junior. Second dimension is collaboration, and this one is also pretty common for other roles as well. And this is how you essentially work with others. So here we're talking about leadership, so taking ownership on projects, leading projects, for example, how you communicate with the teams and how many teams you can actually take on as you're working. And obviously stakeholder management and influence, so how much you can change the way people are, you know, building the product, how much you can influence on that process, and also how many people you can collaborate with, not only your peers, but also, you know, people from the management. And the third one is capabilities, and this is essentially the area that is UX writing specific because it's a critical area of knowledge. And here we have different skills that are specific to the UX writing craft. So I have the product and business mindset, and here I mean essentially understanding how do we build a tech product? How does a tech product actually works in terms of the business? How do we create content? How do we edit and how do we deliver content, you know, considering the setting of the team, if it's a cross-functional team or not, and then the content maintenance, aka audit of the existing copy, working with legacy copy that is a bit outdated. So let's zoom in the capabilities and see what these are. So I also call it a UX writing skills matrix, but essentially it is all the capabilities that I was expecting from UX writers that were working in my teams. Again, these are not set in stone, and it really depends on the company which things can be a part of this or not. Because, for instance, at Preply, it's very common to experiment a lot. So the knowledge of A/B testing was actually a mandatory in UX writers. While at Qonto, for example, this is not really a very frequent case. So we're not really requiring that in the team. So it's really a choice that you have. But these are, the basic things that you can find pretty much in every company. So I have divided them in two parts. One part is, I call it product or design. So essentially here, for UX writer, it is important to be able to research. And when it comes to research, we mean qualitative research. So doing interviews, talking to customers, learning how they communicate, doing user testing, but also, quantitatively, essentially working with data, A/B testing if needed, and so on. Performance analysis, understanding the metrics, understanding how they can impact the copy, and how copy can impact essentially the metrics and make a difference in business. Knowledge of design and content tools. So I wasn't, specifically mentioning Figma, but this is what I mean. It could be a different tool, but usually, in the companies that I've been, that's the core tool to go. UX principles, obviously, coming from UX writing, so user understanding the user experience principles, product and business mindset. So I've mentioned that before. Essentially understanding how a product development works and where what is the role of a UX writer in that flow. And obviously persuasion and user psychology, because we're creating products for humans. So we need to understand how to craft the communication to them. And then a really writing specific points. So here I have a variable. So nailing language, grammar, and punctuation. Why? Because obviously it really depends what is your master copy. Usually it's English. But for example, at Qonto, the team is bilingual. So all UX writers, almost all UX writers are writing in two languages, which to me is mind-blowing. Writing and editing microcopy. So obviously knowing how to create content for the environment that we're in, and that's the interface or the app. Writing for localization, because if your product or project is not scaling today, it's probably going to scale tomorrow. So at some point, the copy that you're writing in English will be translated to other languages. So that needs to be taken into account. And obviously, just knowing how to work with tone and voice of the company that you're working for or the brand, to make sure that the way you communicate with a customer is consistent and is clear. So essentially growth framework is the combination of the 3 dimensions that we mentioned before, which is delivery, collaboration, and capabilities, as well as essentially mapping out all the positions that you have. So here I'm just showing the 3, the ones that I showed before, but you can also, add all the other levels and essentially describe how each of the levels look like. So essentially what you get in the end is a column that is describing a position from delivery perspective, from collaboration perspective, and from capabilities perspective. So this is a template. I did it in a Google sheet. I cannot really present it here because you won't see anything. In fact, I have brought a screenshot so you can see that it's not really presentation friendly. but this is what a growth framework usually looks like. So as you can see, here you can see only the capabilities part and the collaboration, but essentially what I do here is I describe every single competency, the level of detail that is needed. So essentially, if we take a junior writer, then the level of autonomy and the level of knowledge is very basic, and then it grows as it becomes, as the position is becoming more senior. So whoever is right now working on growth frameworks and needs guidance or coaching, or really wants to get their hands on this document, I'm not greedy, I'm happy to share it, so you can just reach out. But I wasn't sure that it's something that it's needed to show in detail here. Okay, so as we're done with the kind of the difficult things, the complicated ones, I want to talk about the last thing that I've set the expectations to talk about, and that's creating space. Because having all the tools, in the end, it looks difficult, but when you do it, you have it, and that's it. But the most difficult part, and again, this is what I've been also seeing in my teams, is actually creating space for growth. Because as we're moving very fast, there's a lot of work. There's no time to speak about development and things like that. So oftentimes this important topic is overlooked. So essentially, what we end up doing is we just work, and we don't think what goes next. So with the premise that we have seen some of the tools, and we know some of the foundation of how to create a career framework. Obviously, this is something you can say, oh, come on, we've just heard it for 30 minutes. That's not enough. I know, but at least you have an idea now. We can talk about creating the space, and essentially creating the space. It's difficult, but doable only through conversation. You just need to create space to have this honest conversations with your team. And by the way, I know that there's a lot of folks that are not managers, that are just individual contributors. So sometimes, or freelancers, even when you're just working on your own and you don't have a team, or you don't have a specific manager. So this is also a conversation that you can have with others, so your manager, but you can also have with yourself. So it's kind of pretty inclusive framework that I'm going to give. But essentially, growth deserves space, and your responsibility is to create it as a manager, but also as an individual contributor, because sometimes it's also about pushing that conversation to your manager, not waiting until that will somehow happen. So how do we start this conversation? I like to talk conversations about growth as growth talks. So that's the key term that I'm using with my team. So essentially, here I have some of the questions that again, you can either ask your team or ask yourself. So it could be like a reflection session. So first of all, I think it's important to understand why personal development, career progression is important to you, because we all have different reasons for that. Another thing is actually zooming in and understanding what are the things that you are enjoying the most, project that you have enjoyed working on, and the strength and the skills that you're not really using all that much at work. Another cool question is to actually understand, like, what are the common questions or like challenges that other people bring to you and consider you as an expert, and things that you enjoy doing in your free time. I think it could sound terrifying, if your UX writer once tells you that, well, I actually, in the future, I want to become a product manager. Well, that's incredible. That's awesome. We don't need to be, kind of terrified about this. But definitely there's a lot of things that we can do. And there's a lot of things in the current position that the person can reinforce and can work on as a UX writer still, because there's a lot of skills that can be applied afterwards in other fields and areas in tech. So when it comes to career progression, I think that it needs to have a plan, because talking about things is great, but when we talk and do not document the things that we have discussed, it's not really working. So a lot of conversations are lost somewhere, and nobody remembers what they were. So it's important, to document whatever is being discussed. Important questions are also questions about dreams, because those are the ones that actually inspire the person to grow. And obviously, it's important to understand if it's a leadership path or it's an expertise path. Something else, so how you can work with the growth framework is essentially looking at what you already have and what of those skills and capabilities can be reinforced. If you see that, as a junior writer, you have it all, sorted in a great shape, you can already start looking at the next essentially column and understanding, okay, what is that I can work on in the future. And when I talk about, documenting and essentially having a plan, I mean specifically a plan. So here's a template. Obviously, you can, the format can be whatever you want. It can be in Figma, it can be in Google Docs and so on. But I think it's important to, not plan to improve too many things at a time. So usually when I'm having growth talks with my team, it's all about focusing on 1 to 3 goals maximum. Sometimes 1 is already a lot. So another point is actually focusing on the fact that the goals are SMART, meaning that they're measurable, that, we can commit to them. We understand what is the desired result, and then we can actually understand, how to count the actual result. Another thing is, progress check-ins, because again, we need to add intention in having this consistency in the growth talks with our team or with ourselves, right? So it's all about, knowing that there is this time when we're going to go through our plan and check how things are going. And, obviously, the best reminder is to not be hard on yourself, and that even small progress is progress, because sometimes, people are so busy and then, they set very ambitious development goals, but then nothing happens or just very little happens. And so they get disappointed. And so, it seems like they're failing their career progression plan, but that's not true, because, small progress is progress. So at the end of the day, the most powerful and effective tool when it comes to career progression is actually talking about career progression. We have seen the tools, and there are a lot of them. So by having the tools, it's great, but the important thing is also talking and finding the space to discuss the growth of your team, or also think about how you can grow as a UX writer. So yeah, that's That's it.
All right. Okay. So many people ask here if they could have access to the framework by any chance. I don't know if you...
Yeah. I will, if we will be sending the recording, I can
We will.
prepare a shareable file so the folks can have access to that.
That's amazing. So we will, so just share it with us and we will share it with everyone. And that's amazing. Thank you. And we have some questions right now. So Tiago is asking, what do you do about challenges like become a better UX writer in 15 days, where you have to write a message in 10 minutes or less?
I mean, an immediate question, without thinking too much, I would really ask why, what is the end goal of this? If you just want to kind of like, practice a lot, okay. But what is, your personal goal with that? What are you trying to achieve? I think the answer to that question will also answer your question.
All right. And this is a really good question right now. So Snesana is asking, what makes a senior UX writer? So like, when do you know you're a senior UX writer? And even I will like up on that and will ask, when do you know that you're not a junior anymore?
So to me, again, you will see it on the framework, so it's pretty clear, but from the framework as well, to me, it's the level of autonomy, how autonomous you are. If you don't need any supervision, if your copy is, of the high quality level that you don't actually need a review, if you are, if you know how to collaborate with others. And I think, as you're getting more senior, you can manage challenging cases with the team with, trade-offs in terms of tech limitations, and, people things, things that, have to do with communication, finding the best possible solution with, the resources that you have, working on documentation. So to me, like, people in more senior positions are the ones that are already in the place to create standards, because in a more junior position, you're a bit of in a reactive nature, you're just doing. But in a senior position, you're thinking why you're doing this in this specific way. So for example, when we're talking about, I don't know, writing titles on mobile, why they should be all written starting from a verb, for example, and then you can create a standard that can then scale, because it will help, other writers, write in the same kind of style. So that's, kind of like a lot of things together, but overall, that's the difference to me.
And what's the difference between one of those seniors to a principal / director, in your opinion, if there is any?
Yeah, so for example, again, it really depends from the organization. So I haven't really seen a lot of UX writing experts or UX writing. I haven't seen like any UX writing principal in my life. But again, I haven't really been in many companies.
So usually it's in like the big companies,
exactly.
The big organizations. You can see them in like banks and like those companies.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, those people, they're very similar to the senior roles, but they're the ones that are also mentoring others. So there's a lot of mentorship in those positions, a lot of coaching, a lot of, kind of like quality. They're a bit of a quality guards, but they're also consultants on, big strategic projects when it comes to UX writing. So they are, to me, they're also the allies of people in head and lead positions, because head and lead positions obviously have, goals like hiring and development of the teams that are taking, a lot of time, if especially the team is growing and the startup is scaling. So usually those people, the experts and the principals, are the allies of them. Yeah.
Nice. All right. So what steps would you recommend for a new UX managers to build their rapport with the team and help develop their career?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because I, kind of remember how I was starting as a manager, and
so tough to start, like
yeah,
so much like I was clueless when just getting started to manage people. That's so tough.
Yeah, I think it's a lot about probably management, and at that point you focus very little. I mean, because you know the craft, but then the whole world of people management opens in front of you and you're like, oh my gosh, like what do I do with these humans that are acting as humans? And it's so complicated. So to me, it's not a success recipe, but something that helped me a lot is I actually got enrolled into a psychotherapy course, which helped me, kind of like work on my communication skills, on my empathy skills, on my active listening skills, asking questions and so on. And it kind of like helps you to work with your ego and so on. But obviously, that's from the soft skill size. But again, building connections with the team, that's super interesting, super exciting. I love it. This is the process that I'm going through right now, because I've been at Qonto for just 1 month, so I'm a new lead, with a team that has already been there, before me, that that know what they're doing, that are great writers. So to me, the challenge is actually to build that connection with them, without kind of ruining what they already have. So it's a lot about listening. It's a lot about asking questions. I rely a lot on the people that are already, doing the great job that they're doing. But I also, something that I'm going to do is a transition meeting where, I will be talking about myself as a manager, myself as a person, as a human, because I have, my strengths and my weaknesses. But I have shared like an anonymous Google form with my team so that they can challenge me and ask me any questions. And, maybe they have expectations from me as a manager. Maybe they want me to start working on something specific, and so on. So we can have this, we can elevate the level of trust, and we can have this honest and sincere, essentially, conversation.
That's such a great tip. I think I'm going to use it, like that anonymous form, to let people to just say to you whatever they want to say to you, or ask whatever they want to ask. I think it's a very good tip, and I will use it. I'm going to write down it and use it. Me on a person, by the way, Qonto are hiring like a lot of talented people lately, as I see. It's just hiring frenzy. You guys are growing fast.
But I mean, the UX writing team is
That's
amazing.
What I'm talking about.
It's huge. I mean, I have Melanie as as my fellow lead, and there's a team of so many writers, and we just hired another lead that is joining us soon. So just amazing, jaw-dropping, to be honest.
we've just talked with them about having one of your team members in our podcast. So
perfect.
You're invited.
I'm coming.
If you're interested, you're more than invited.
Definitely.
We'd love to have you. Yeah, definitely. So let's book some time. That's awesome. Check out Writers in Tech podcast on Spotify, people. That's like the follow-up. My personal tip as a manager, by the way, is to try to find, I don't know, like systematic things that happens in your team. Like if you notice that there is like a very specific, I don't know, question that is repeating, or a time that most people are talking with each other. So try to see if you could systemize it and do like a weekly meeting in that hour, or it's way more easy, in my opinion, to dig the responsibility as a manager when I can identify something systematic that is happening in the organization. And I hope that tip made sense to people.
No, that's a great tip.
Okay, more questions. Thank you. That's a question that I really like. Check it out. Pete. So how do you see the UX writer role developing in the next 10 years or so? I'm also curious about applying UX writing in problems other than just digital products like signets. I'm not familiar with that word, etc. Yeah, good question. I'm not sure even that the name of the role would be UX writer in 10 years from now, but let's see.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm not a like super obsessed with obviously the naming of it. I think, you know, I really like the reasonings of some of the companies that decided to change it. But if it, you know, if it has a strong argument that it makes sense, but if it's just because other did it, we're doing it too, then no. But when it comes to future of UX writing, wow, that's tough. I was actually reading reading an article on AI again. On you know, text AI, which you know, personally, when I read those things, I get very scared. I feel unsafe.
Yeah, it is scary. It is scary.
But to be honest, you know, the point that they were making is that we don't have to be scared, because in the end, it's always going to be about humans and machines. And so humans are going to be the ones kind of like polishing the work that machines are doing. So essentially, when we're talking about, you know, scaling a craft or scaling UX writing in an organization which requires a lot of UX writing, then, you know, in that case, we're talking about why not use the machine and then use the people that can polish it and, you know, use it to your advantage. Obviously, somebody can argue and say, yeah, but the machines, you know, they can take our jobs and so on. But I want to be more, you know, optimistic and hope that in the end, it's going to be a collaboration and it's going to, you know, kind of make our lives easier.
So I hear you. First of all, okay, so you have all of those AI creators for images lately. Have you seen those, like DALL-E and Midjourney? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not really, no.
So it's like tools. Check it out, everyone. Midjourney or DALL-E by OpenAI. So it's all of these tools that you just write a prompt to them, like a scene of a guy walking on the moon. You write it to them, like the prompt, and then you see like an illustration of it. And you can say, make it Salvador Dali style. And it will be Salvador Dali style, which is insane. So I'm in the discussion lately because it's interesting. So many pieces of art by people that don't know nothing about art. So on one hand, you see illustrators say, hey, they took a job, I boycott this thing. Another type of illustrators are like, all right, so that's like easier way to create my craft. They own it, and then they create even better craft on top of it, like a better creation. They improve their message, their art, and their messaging through the medium. So that's interesting, and it is scary. So I recommend everyone to check it out. About writing, I don't know, it feels like, first of all, like, let's talk about it. Like 10 years from now, who knows what interfaces are we going to have? Is it going to be like glasses that are going to project stuff everywhere in the street? Or is it going to be a chip in our brain? Or is it going to be a mobile phone? I don't know, like, how does the user interface look? But what I can say is that we are going to have more digital environments surrounding us, kiosks, TVs, whatever. And we would need to have people or robots, whatever, I don't know, to write those interfaces. And that's why we're seeing massive growth in UX writing. And about like how machine is going to work with it, I don't know. Like I'm using those AI writing tools lately, all of that things, and it's very raw. You can't let it to solve an issue yet. You can't. So I don't know, but definitely exciting for the future for sure.
By the way, Yuval, I'm seeing also questions in the Q&A. So are we also addressing those?
Yeah, let's address those for sure. All right, so everyone, the chat is a bit overwhelming right now. Just drop your question in the Q&A if you have it. And let's see. So Courtney is asking, in your mind, is there a difference between a UX writer and a content designer? If so, what? And in the meantime, I'm going to share an article we wrote about it, but yes.
That's a tricky one, because if there's an article about it, maybe there's a difference about it. I don't know.
So I will tell you that, sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but our from our team did like 6 months research analyzing like job opportunities, and
Wow.
the outcome, by the way, the outcome is that it's just the terminology like UX designer and product designer. So that's like our, yeah.
Okay, thank God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I was expecting, but I didn't want, to. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't think that there is a difference, but I will have a question for you, Kate. What do you think is a better term?
As I said, to me, I'm not really a huge fan of just calling things because I like them called in this way or another. I like to think about the purpose that you're trying to, follow with the action that you're doing. So, I've been thinking about it, especially in the environment that I was, for a long time. Like, does it make sense to rename the team, and what would be the purpose? Because sometimes, folks out of UX writing field misunderstand and think, oh, if there's a writing, then I can ask them to write, I don't know, an article for me, or something super random. So maybe, in terms of visibility and transparency within the org structure in the company, that could help. But again, I think it, you cannot just rename the team from one day to another and kind of hope that it will work. So it's all about kind of promoting this change. And, if you have this goal to actually, bring UX writing closer to design, and so, calling them content designers makes sense, then, then do it. But if it's just because other team did it, can we do it as well? Then that's not going to work. But I think like there's a lot of groundwork that should be done apart from just renaming it. And when I think about it, I'm like, do I have other priorities? I do. Yeah. So I mean, it's an important topic, but I don't know how much, it is worth the investment.
Just like many people are like, think that if there's going to be design in the title, so they would consider to be designers and so on. At the same time, I feel like the word content might create some jargon, because I said to people content design, people that not in our small niche, and they think that I'm talking about this content is also video, and it's also images, and it's also post-production, and then it's weird, but we create jargon as part of like our title, and that's weird.
Yeah. Tricky topic.
So I'm down for tricky topic for sure, for word people that's even trickier.
Yeah.
But check out the blog post I showed.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So many questions. Okay. Do you feel UX writing is useful for UX research and strategy specialists?
So I'm not sure about strategy specialists, because this is something that I have no experience working with. So we have strategy specialists at Qonto, but I'm very new to Qonto, so I can't really tell. And we didn't really have people like that at Preply. But actually, I had sometimes, conversations with the leadership team of why don't we bring, researchers to UX writing and vice versa. I didn't end up doing it. To me, it wasn't making a lot of sense. But again, it depends on the context. If the company only has UX researchers and has 0 UX writers, in that case, maybe yes. But if it's a small company and there's not a lot of staff, and then you kind of like go with the flow and do many things together. So yeah, it's a challenging question, also because I'm lacking of context to answer it. But I don't know, Yuval, maybe you can add something to this.
So basically, I feel like research people and strategy people, like, let me just refer to the UX researchers, for example. So I think that the more we teach people from the product team about the craft of each other, so the better the overall experience of the product is going to be. So the more research people will know about UX writing, even if they wouldn't have to know how to do it, even if they wouldn't have to be doing hands-on UX writing, I think it would be good, because then they could know how to research certain language or certain words, and it will create better experience overall, because then the writer could have better use of their research. I will top on that, and I will say also, I think the designers should know a lot about UX writing, because then the prototype will have better communication. I feel like UX writers should know how to use Figma, so they will have better communication with their designers. And I also think that UX writers should know how to do research methodologies. And I think all of the people, of the UX folks, should share methodologies with each other, but every person should be the owner of one craft. So the UX writer is the owner of the words, but everyone should know about UX writing and how to do it. And the UX researcher is in charge of the research, but definitely should know how designers work and how to talk to writers. So that's my 2 cents about that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think, curiosity can bring you places. I mean, the more curious you are, the more open you are to learning like how other folks are working, and also sharing the way that you're working, things are just better.
You have more empathy also for a team, like their craft. It's important. So yeah, I always invite designers and research people for the UX writing sessions I'm doing for UX writers. And we'll take, I feel like 3-4 more questions. Stay with us. If you stay all the way to the end, I'm going to share with you something really cool. So how do you create timeline for the progression plan?
So it really depends. So it depends on what kind of skills we're working on, because I don't want to assume that, in 3 months you can become a pro in something. So if we're just starting to learn, for example, working with A/B testing and learning how to formulate hypotheses and looking for, great insights in customer researches that we can test, that will take time and that will take practice. So in that case, I just estimate, 6 months at least. But again, it really depends on the end goal, what I want to achieve. So usually, something as big, which requires, practice, maybe requires some extra reading, maybe requires also mentoring from other colleagues, people from product or development, then that will require more time. But usually I wouldn't be, so pressing on the timeline. And, but, a classic, an easy task, like, I don't know, learning the basics of qualitative research, that would take me a quarter. But then, and I don't know, maybe designing your first research, and then, learning how to A/B test, to formulate hypotheses and so on, that would take me six months, so 2 quarters.
All right, so thank you for that. And a lot of time I create some kind of a plan and I have to modify and change it as I go.
Exactly.
So be flexible, be open. You don't want to be strict to a plan. One of my mentors said, hey, the Excel, just take it, you can, and you need to change it if you feel like the world is changed, because the Excel is not going to change itself.
Yeah, that's true.
Sidika is asking, typically, how long is the journey from junior to head of UX writing? And that's a tricky question.
Yeah, that's a tricky, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, I'll tell you, it took me, I think 3.5 years to reach, from a junior UX writer to a head of copywriting position in my company. But it really depends. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to spend this amount of time. It depends on at which stage you're joining the company, how the company is developing, what kind of projects you get to work with, how much support you're getting from the leadership, because if you're not getting that support, then, the growth is not happening, and many other things. So there's no, kind of like perfect time. There's only your time. and, take all the time that you want, to, reach the place that you want to be.
There is a word in Japanese named ikigai. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What is ikigai? What do you think it is? So it's like there is many translations too.
It's like a perfect state, or
exactly. So basically, it's like mastering a craft. It's like you actually have a whole book about this specific word. So in Japan, if you master your craft, so that's your ikigai. So you have like Iro, which is a guy that is creating sushi, and his ikigai is to create sushi, and his son, their ikigai is to create omelets. And it took his son to take like 50 years to get his ikigai because they're very Japanese, very strict, and so on. So that question reminded me the ikigai. So if UX writing is your ikigai, you just be consistent, patient, and you reach to mastery as long as you're being consistent, and that's your passion. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And don't try to worry yourself and hurry yourself into senior role. Titles doesn't really matter. What matters is the impact that you manage to create with your work. All right, last one. If it's okay, like we can take like a few more, but let's see if we have.
Yeah.
In your opinion, being a good leader implies a prior experience in the mastery track?
Yeah. Personally, in my opinion, yes. But this is just the way I like things to work, and I really like to be, I have a lot of respect for hands-on leaders, for leaders that, if needed, they can, show, and with an example, they can lead with example, but not only, kind of like general, but also practical. So to me, that is important. However, that doesn't mean that this is the rule of thumb, and everybody needs to be both leaders, but also very, very good at their craft. And to be honest, as when I started focusing more on the leadership side of things, naturally, I was writing less. So you can say that, my mastery is actually not growing all that much. But, I have the experience of, working in a team, learning how to be a UX writer, working on developing a feature with the team, and so on and so forth. So that helps me relate to what my team is going through, not just like, yeah, whatever, but like, I really know when developers don't want to do that feature the way you want it to be, and then they don't want to invest in the error state, for example.
Yeah, you have to sell it to them sometimes. All right, everyone, we will take a few more questions, but before that, I want to say that we've just launched our course compare page at the UX Writing Hub. So now, instead of offering one certified course, we offer 3 different certified courses. One is for those autodidacts, people that want to go all self-paced. That's the UX Writing Bootcamp. The second one is for people that are looking for guidance and mentorship, but still self-paced on your own pace. That's the UX Writing Flex. And if you want to go with our program that will get you mentorship, one-on-one mentors, career support, job placement, and also real project in your portfolio, I recommend you to check the UX Writing Academy. We have many students in those, and check everything in the course compare page. And we have the 10 for 10 discount code, so you could get a 10% discount. It's limited only for 10 of each course. Definitely recommend to check it out. And thank you, by the way, for being here today and for listening. I see that Emerson is here. Good to see you, Emerson. That's amazing. And let's take 3 more questions, and that's it. Sounds good?
Yeah, okay. Sure. No, I'm really happy to be here, and I appreciate the questions. They're super interesting, and just love this very fluid and chilled conversation that we're having. And just the fact that we have 98 UX writers with us today, or people that are aspiring to enter the field, it feels so amazing. Where else you can find, you can find yourself in this situation when you have so many like-minded people super close.
It is amazing. We had 120 on the maximum during the call. That was amazing. What's your advice for someone who is starting to learn on this field? Or should I say, what advice which you could give yourself when you started learning?
So when I personally started learning, what helped me a lot was actually having a mentor. So I did have a mentor. It was Jane. Now she's working at Shopify in Canada. But back then, you know, she was mentoring actually me and Noah. Probably you have met Noah from Preply in one of the podcast episodes and the presentations that he did here.
He was a mentor in our academy.
Exactly. I mean, also that. So, you know, we were starting together, and we had, you know, somebody that we could rely on in terms of expertise. And obviously she was, you know, sharing a lot of advice that was available back then. But it was really helpful just to have a person that has that experience and is going through that, you know, same process as you know, as you are about to start.
Definitely recommend to get yourself a mentor. I think that you're on that list, correct?
Yeah. So I'm mentoring on ADP list. I don't really have a lot, you know, huge availability, but I am. And, you know, right now I don't really have any availability, but if you're interested, you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm really open, and I'm open to open my availability if you're interested in that. So yeah, obviously super happy to help anybody who's just starting or who needs an advice in the UX awesome. Writing field or management.
That's awesome. By the way, everyone, feel free to drop your LinkedIn and to add each other and to keep, you know, this network. I dropped my LinkedIn right now. Feel free to add yours and add each other. That's important. And feel free also to drop your LinkedIn as well if you can.
Yeah, I'll drop my.
Okay, so last one. Okay, I can see heavy use of advocate in UX than in law. I feel the meaning is trivialized often. What do you mean advocate in UX writing?
Is it in the Q&A? Just
that's like the last question.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah, it's no, I just saw the formulation. It's super cool, like the comparison between law and UX writing. But indeed, it's a pretty jargony thing that everybody keeps saying, you know.
Advocate for your
advocate, and I hear it a lot in the interviews, you know, when people and they're like, I'm advocate, I'm like, yes. But essentially it's you know, it's speaking up and communicating about what you do, especially because UX writing is you know, still in some companies, for many people, a professional, a field that is not super new. So advocating is more about just communicating, explaining, as you've all mentioned before, just sharing with folks, you know, that are not UX writers. How do you do UX writing? What does it mean to do UX writing? At Preply, I remember at the early stages, we did like this marathon, and we did, you know, specific workshops for every department, helping them to understand, you know, how do we write, what is our tone, and how, you know, kind of like the UX writing principles that we use can help them in their work. So for example, you know, for the HR team, we help them to kind of like more clearly, more concisely, because those are, you know, the typical principles of UX writing. For UX researchers, we help them also to, you know, write better emails, you know, better subject lines that are prompting people to actually, you know, enroll to a research that they're organizing, and so on. But it's about, you know, kind of creating those connections and, you know, making yourself heard, showing that you're doing work, because in the end, as a manager, if you're advocating for whatever you're doing, that can also be reflecting in the way that you're promoting your team and you're giving salary increases to your team, you know. Very basic fundamental things, but the more you communicate, the more you show, the more, you know, it's clear to people what you do and how much impact you're doing, because in the end, it's not about just saying, hey, we're doing UX writing here, but it's more about we're doing UX writing and this is the impact that it has on the business. This is where people are actually like, oh, wow, you know, that small copy is doing that. Yeah.
It's really important to, sometimes we need to sell UX writing. We need to sell to companies, hey, we can move the needle for your business, for your company, because we are going to create better product copy. And that's why you should hire us, or that's why you should listen to us, or that's why we should collaborate with us or invite us even to more meetings. So there is an advocating components. I feel like at the UX Writing Hub, we work a lot about explaining the world why it's so important for UX writers to be part of the team or invited early to the process, so it wouldn't be an afterthought. So yeah, advocating is part of it. And all right, everyone, that was an amazing event. We are, as I said before, going to have a live event in New York on the 14th of September. So if you're in New York by any chance, more than invited, can be Manhattan. But we are also going to live stream it for folks in our community. So stay tuned for that. Kate Mas, what a lovely event we had with you today. I'm so happy you took the time to be with us today.
I'm super happy as well. And, you know, this is my first event after the war has started in Ukraine. So I was, you know, kind of a bit anxious how it's going to go and if I'm going to, you know, make it. So I'm very thankful to you for creating the safe space, for, you know, making me feel comfortable, for all your amazing questions, you know, the conversations that we had, and, you know, obviously for all the people that came to share this event with us.
In case people want to support, so what would be the best way to go here?
So actually, apart from mentoring on ADP List, I'm also mentoring on a local Ukrainian mentorship platform. Unfortunately, it's not localized, so that's a minus. But what you could do, you could donate to some of the initiatives that we have that they have. So
what is the link? I will just share it right now.
Yeah, let me just
so everyone, I recommend you to check it out. Donate if you can, and thank you so much for joining. Yes, Kate.
Yeah, sorry, just looking for the link. So this is the link. This is an initiative of the president of Ukraine. So here you can just donate to any initiative that you want, if you want to support the brave people of Ukraine. And that made also this session possible because I'm talking to you from Kiev. Yeah, it was a very safe experience also from the sky.
That's good. Okay. Good. So Kate, I'm looking forward to having you in the podcast. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Bless you. Stay safe.
Yeah.
And see you next time.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Ciao. Bye, everyone.